The pre-dawn chill seeped into Officer Ethan Miller's bones as he found them, three small figures huddled under the iconic arch of Bixby Creek Bridge. When his flashlight beam caught their faces, one child extended a photograph. He took it, and the world stopped. The picture was of his mother. The wail of an ambulance tore through the early morning silence, its echo bouncing between the slumbering coastal cliffs. Ethan Miller loosened the tie of his uniform, his eyes burning after a 12-hour shift. The digital clock on the dashboard of his squad car blinked 5:43, each minute crawling as though resisting the arrival of daylight. A layer of sea salt mist clung to the windshields of parked cars, silent witnesses to yet another chilly October night. Ethan turned on the heater, watching his breath form a pale cloud in the air. The radio crackled occasionally, some drunk causing trouble at a seaside bar, an alarm triggered at a downtown store. The kind of routine call marking the end of his watch. The cruiser glided down Main Street, its headlights cutting through the darkness like sharp blades. 2 decades and change on the force had turned Ethan into a city whisperer. He knew its rhythms, its secrets. Every shadowed alley and lamplit corner had a story to tell. The homeless man sleeping by the local bakery gave a discreet wave, a morning ritual that had been repeating for years. A cold wind blew as he turned onto the coastal highway, rustling dry leaves in a macabre dance, heading toward the famed Bixby Creek Bridge. The old scenic route overhead had been mostly bypassed for decades, ever since the new interstate was completed. The cruiser's spotlight caught a flicker of motion in the shadows, so subtle that anyone else might have missed it. Ethan hit the brakes, his fingers drummed nervously on the worn steering wheel, a habit he had picked up over the years. The holster on his hip felt heavier as he stepped out of the car, right hand instinctively resting on his weapon. Experience had taught him that the shadows under that bridge often concealed more than mere darkness. A sob broke the silence. Ethan froze, senses on high alert. Another sob, quieter this time, followed by a muffled whisper. His hand moved away from his gun and reached for the flashlight. The beam swept across the darkness, first revealing a small faded pink backpack, then a teddy bear lying on the dust, and then 3 pairs of eyes stared back at him from the shadows. "Shh, Chloe." The voice was soft, almost a hush, coming from a little girl who stood out among the 3 huddled figures. Her thin arms formed a protective barrier around the other 2, knuckles white from the tight grip. "It's going to be okay." Ethan turned off the flashlight, leaving only the faint glow of the street lamps to illuminate the scene. A groan from his knees protested the movement as he crouched down, keeping a safe distance. "Hello?" he murmured, his voice honed by years of dealing with frightened victims. "I'm Officer Ethan. Are you hurt?" The oldest girl, no more than 5, studied his face with disconcerting intensity. Her green eyes carried a painful wisdom no child should have. Her brown hair fell in tangled waves over a navy coat that had seen better days. "We're hungry," she finally answered, her voice steadier now. The boy beside her, dark hair half covering his face, clung tighter to her arm. The smallest of the 3, a golden-curled girl who looked like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale, watched everything with wide eyes. Ethan reached into his uniform pocket with deliberately slow movements. The packet of cookies, his emergency snack, brought about an instant change in the atmosphere. The children's eyes lit up, their posture shifting subtly in his direction. "Chocolate?" the boy asked, his voice so low Ethan had to lean in to hear. A faint smile flickered across Ethan's face as he offered the packet. "There's enough for everyone," he assured them, watching as the oldest girl doled out the cookies with the caution of someone rationing precious treasure. "What are your names?" "Olivia," the oldest answered between bites, crumbs falling onto her coat. "That's Noah," she pointed to the boy, already on his second cookie. "And that's Chloe." The smallest of the 3, Chloe, hadn't touched her cookie. Her eyes, the same shade of blue as the dawn sky, were fixed on Ethan with a curiosity that seemed beyond her 3 years. Her tiny hands fiddled with something in the pocket of her faded red coat. Time seemed to slow when she finally pulled out a folded piece of paper. Ethan watched, intrigued, as she approached with hesitant steps, offering the paper toward him like a gift. His fingers trembled against the yellowed paper. The photo, its edges worn from handling, revealed a face he hadn't seen in 20 years. The gentle smile that had soothed his childhood nights, the kind eyes that held stories never told, the pearl necklace his mother had sworn once belonged to his great-grandmother. Eleanor! The name slipped from his lips like an ancient prayer, long forgotten. The last image he had of his mother was of a morning much like this. Coffee brewing in the kitchen, toast on the table, a quick kiss before heading out to buy more bread. 20 years had passed, and the bread never arrived. A movement caught his attention. Olivia had stepped closer, the dawning light now strong enough to reveal her features clearly. The delicate shape of her chin, the gentle arch of her eyebrows, even the way she tilted her head slightly. All traits he knew intimately, traits he saw in the mirror every day, traits of his mother. "Grandma said you'd find us here," Olivia murmured, her small hand slipping into his with a familiarity that made his heart skip a beat. She promised it would be today. The rising sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, its rays finally reaching under the bridge. Ethan looked once more at the photo in his hands, then at the three faces before him. The radio in his cruiser crackled in the distance, some call needing attention, some emergency demanding his presence. For the first time in his career, Ethan did not respond to the call. His eyes were fixed on the 3 children destiny had placed in his path and on the countless questions their all-too-familiar faces brought. The mystery that had consumed half his life had just gained 3 new chapters, and something told him the story was only beginning. The photo trembled in Ethan's hands as he watched the 3 children sleeping on the couch at the precinct. Even in slumber, Olivia kept an arm protectively around her younger siblings. The coffee on his desk had gone cold, forgotten, while memories dragged him 2 decades into the past. 1989. 45 Oak Street, the aroma of pancakes filled the little yellow kitchen. Ethan, 12 years old, sat at the worn table, watching his mother dance to Elvis on an old radio. Eleanor spun around the kitchen, her flared skirt swaying with her movements, the pearl necklace gleaming under the morning light. "One more, Mom," Ethan begged, pancake crumbs around his plate. Eleanor smiled, that smile that lit up her blue eyes and formed little wrinkles at the corners. "Last one," she warned, but she always ended up making 2 more. Her waitress salary barely covered the bills, but somehow there were always pancakes on Sundays. The memory dissolved like sugar in hot water. Ethan blinked, returning to the present. His fingers unconsciously traced the scar on his chin, a permanent reminder of that last morning. 2004. The day everything changed. "You can't keep treating me like a kid," Ethan's voice, then 25, reverberated through the thin walls of the apartment. "I'm a cop now, not your little boy." Eleanor stood by the stove, her hands clutching her apron, the pearl necklace trembling softly with her measured breaths. "I just want you to be careful, Ethan. This investigation, you're dealing with dangerous people." "It's my job. I can't just ignore the corruption in the department because you're scared." The next words flew out like poisoned arrows. Ethan could hardly remember what he'd said, only the devastated look on his mother's face and the silent tears running down her cheeks. He stormed out, slamming the door, his chin bleeding after he'd kicked the coffee table in a rage. When he returned 3 days later, the apartment was empty. The pearl necklace his mother never took off lay abandoned on a simple note. "I love you too much to watch you destroy yourself." Ethan spent the next 20 years searching for her. Every lead, every possible address led to another dead end. The investigation that sparked their fight was shelved due to lack of evidence. He was transferred to another precinct, where he slowly built a reputation as an exemplary officer, as though each act of kindness could somehow atone for the last words he'd said to his mother. Chloe's soft whimper brought him back to the present. The little one stirred in her sleep, her face twisted with anguish. Ethan instinctively walked over, adjusting the blanket around her. Her golden curls reminded him so much of Eleanor that it hurt. "Sir?" The social worker's voice startled him from the doorway. "We need to discuss placing the children in a temporary shelter." "No?" The word came out firmer than he intended. Ethan stood up, years of investigator's instinct taking over. "These kids are my responsibility." The social worker frowned. "Officer Miller, I understand you feel connected to the case, but there are procedures." "They know me," Ethan cut in, his mind racing. "Olivia said my mother promised I would find them. This can't be a coincidence." He took out his badge, twirling it between his fingers, a nervous habit developed over the years. "I need to find out how they got here, who brought them, and most importantly, where my mother is." Afternoon sunlight filtered through the blinds, painting golden stripes across the police station floor. Ethan watched the children sleep, so vulnerable, so certain he would protect them. Somewhere, his mother had orchestrated this encounter. After 20 years of silence, she was sending a message, and these 3 kids were the key. Olivia stirred in her sleep, her little hand unconsciously seeking Noah's. Ethan recognized the gesture. It was exactly how Eleanor used to hold his hand during thunderstorms, when the thunder felt too loud and the world too big. "I'll need some leave," he said at last, still watching the children, "and access to every missing persons file from the last 20 years. The social worker hesitated, but there was something in Ethan's resolve that made her nod. "I'll prepare the necessary paperwork, but you'll have to undergo an evaluation for temporary custody." Ethan only nodded, his mind already mapping out the first steps of the investigation. 20 years of unanswered questions, of sleepless nights replaying that final argument, of guilt corroding him like acid. Now, at last, he had something tangible. 3 little angels who somehow knew his mother. The long-forgotten coffee was stone cold by the time Ethan finally sat back at his desk. His fingers traced the old photo, outlining his mother's face. "Where have you been all this time, Mom?" he murmured to himself. "And why now?" He knew the answers lay somehow in these 3 children sleeping on his couch, and he would not rest until he uncovered the truth, no matter how long it took, no matter where it led him. This time, he would not let his mother disappear again. The corridors of the central precinct buzzed with typical Monday morning activity. Ethan guided the 3 children through the maze of desks and people, a protective hand on Olivia's shoulder, while Noah and Chloe clung to his legs like little shadows. "Miller?" Captain Harrison emerged from his office, his gray eyebrows rising at the sight of the unusual group. "I thought your shift ended hours ago." "We need your help, Cap." Ethan gave the children a subtle nod. "It's complicated." Harrison sighed, his gaze softening when he saw their tired faces. "Break room. Now." The precinct break room, with its worn sofas and temperamental coffee maker, became a makeshift daycare center. Olivia meticulously arranged the cookies another officer had brought, ensuring each sibling got an equal share. Ethan watched, impressed by her maturity. "So," Harrison leaned over his coffee cup, "what do we have here?" Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but a knock on the door interrupted him. A woman of about 35 entered, a folder in hand and a determined expression framed by red-rimmed glasses. "Jennifer Clark, Social Services," she introduced herself, quickly assessing the children. "I got a call about minors found under Bixby Creek Bridge." "Ms. Clark," Harrison acknowledged, "this is Officer Miller. I found the children during my patrol," Ethan interrupted, some instinct prompting him to withhold his personal connection to his mother. "We need to identify them, locate any relatives." Jen had already crouched down near the children, her professional tone replaced by a natural warmth. "Hello, those cookies look delicious. May I try one?" To everyone's surprise, Chloe was the first to offer her cookie. Jen smiled, breaking it in half and giving part back. "Thank you, sweetheart. What's your name?" "Chloe," the little one answered, her voice stronger than Ethan had heard before. "And that's Olivia, and that's Noah." Beautiful names. Jen pulled out a notepad. Could you tell me your last names, too? The children exchanged glances. Olivia, taking her usual role as spokesperson, replied, Grandma Eleanor said we weren't supposed to say. Jen's pencil froze mid-note. Ethan felt his heart race. Grandma Eleanor? He asked, keeping his voice casual. She took care of you? Olivia nodded, her fingers fiddling with the edge of her coat. She used to make us pancakes every Sunday, with chocolate syrup. Ethan and Harrison exchanged looks. Sunday pancakes. Yet another coincidence impossible to ignore. I'll check the records, Jen announced, her fingers already moving across a tablet. With first names and approximate ages, we might find something in the system. An hour later, frustration was palpable in the room. Jen frowned at the screen, her glasses reflecting pages of negative search results. This is impossible, she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. No birth records in the last 6 years match these children. No missing persons reports with these descriptions. It's like they don't exist. Maybe in another state, Harrison suggested, but Jen was already shaking her head. I checked the national database. Nothing. She looked over at the children, who were now quietly playing with some toys borrowed from the precinct's daycare. It doesn't make sense. Every child born on American soil has some sort of record. Ethan watched Chloe drawing with crayons, her golden curls identical to his mother's. The mystery deepened by the minute. I'll help, Jen declared suddenly, closing her folder with determination. Something's very wrong here, and these kids need support. I can expedite the paperwork for temporary custody while we dig deeper. Temporary custody? Harrison questioned. For Officer Miller, Jen replied, as if it were obvious. The children clearly trust him, and keeping them together should be our priority. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, not about custody, but about how easily Jen was suggesting it, when Noah approached, holding a drawing. It's Grandma's house, he explained shyly, showing a colorful sketch of a yellow house with a flower-filled yard. Ethan felt the air escape his lungs. The house was almost an exact replica of his mother's old place on Oak Street. Noah, Ethan asked gently, where is this house? The boy shrugged. I don't know. Grandma Eleanor said we couldn't go back there anymore. She cried a lot when we left. Olivia came closer, placing a protective arm over her brother. It was the night she brought us to the bridge, she said. The girl hesitated, biting her lip. She said Uncle Ethan would find us, and that he'd understand when he saw the photo. Jen watched the exchange with professional interest, taking quick notes. Officer, she called softly, we should talk in private. Harrison nodded, already getting to his feet. I'll have Officer Johnson stay with the kids for a moment. Out in the hallway, Jen adjusted her glasses, her intense gaze fixed on Ethan. There's something you're not telling me, officer. These kids know your name. They draw a house that seems meaningful to you, and they mention a Grandma Eleanor who apparently set up this entire meeting. Ethan hesitated, his hand unconsciously touching the pocket where he kept the photo. 20 years of searching, and now this. Could he trust Jen? His instincts told him yes, but they also warned that something bigger was at play. Miss Clark, he began, choosing his words carefully. How much time do you have? Afternoon sun cast long shadows across the precinct hallway. Somewhere, a phone rang incessantly, and in the break room, 3 mysterious children played on, unaware that their mere existence was about to unearth secrets buried 2 decades ago. Ethan's apartment had never felt so alive. Colorful drawings now covered the once-empty fridge, toys lay scattered across the hallway, and children's laughter echoed against walls that had known only silence for so long. "Higher!" Noah shouted as Ethan swung him through the air, his eyes bright with infectious joy. On the couch, Jen sorted through a pile of newly purchased clothes while Olivia helped with a seriousness almost comical for a 5-year-old. It had been a week since the children's arrival, and she'd practically moved into Ethan's apartment, sleeping in the spare room to help them settle. Chloe observed everything from her favorite spot, a small armchair by the window, teddy bear clutched firmly. Of all the children, she was the quietest, but her watchful eyes missed nothing. "Bath time," Jen announced, and a general scramble ensued. Ethan caught Noah mid-escape, tickling him in the stomach. "Ladies first," he reminded as Jen led Olivia and Chloe to the bathroom. The sound of running water and giggles soon filled the apartment. Ethan sank onto the sofa, Noah still in his arms. The boy fiddled absently with the badge around Ethan's neck, a suggestion from Jen to help him adjust. "Uncle Ethan," Noah's voice was barely a whisper, "do you like pancakes too?" The innocent question hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. Memories of distant Sundays flooded his mind. His mother dancing in the kitchen, the smell of fresh batter in the air. 2004. That last morning. "You don't understand," Ethan's voice echoed through the small kitchen. This investigation could change everything. Eleanor stood by the stove, the last pancake forgotten on the griddle, beginning to burn. The sweet smell turning to smoke, just like their final moments together. "I understand more than you think, son." Her voice trembled, but her eyes held that determination he had inherited. "Some truths come at too high a price." "The truth is always worth it." He banged on the table, spilling a cup of coffee. "You taught me that?" "I also taught you about protection," she replied softly, her fingers touching her pearl necklace. "Sometimes we protect the people we love by keeping secrets." The sound of something breaking in the kitchen snapped Ethan back to the present. Jen had rushed in that direction, but he stopped her with a gesture. "I'm sorry, Uncle Ethan," Olivia's worried voice called out. He found her standing amid shards of a broken glass, her bare feet surrounded by water. "Don't move," he instructed, carefully lifting her in his arms. His heart clenched when he saw how she cringed, expecting a scolding. "It's okay, sweetheart. Accidents happen." Olivia relaxed against him, her small hands finding their way around his neck in a spontaneous hug. "Grandma Eleanor always said that too." Ethan froze for a moment but kept his voice calm. "Really? What else did she say?" Olivia pulled back slightly, studying his face with that intense gaze that sometimes unsettled him. "She used to cry sometimes, looking at old photos. She said she missed her son." Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. Jen, kneeling to pick up the shards, pretended not to notice the tear as he blinked away. "Want to do some drawing?" he suggested, setting Olivia on the kitchen counter while grabbing the supplies Jen insisted on buying. The girl nodded enthusiastically. Soon her small fingers danced across the paper, creating shapes with surprising precision for her age. Ethan prepared dinner, glancing occasionally at her work. "Done," Olivia announced after a few minutes. "It's Grandma Eleanor's house." Ethan approached, and his breath caught. There, carefully drawn, was the small yellow house on Oak Street, the windows with white shutters, the wooden bench on the porch, even the rose bushes his mother tended with such devotion, all perfectly rendered from a child's memory. "Olivia," he called softly, keeping his voice steady. "Do you remember the address?" She frowned in concentration. There were lots of big trees on the street. Her fingers traced the lines of the drawing. "Grandma Eleanor said it was a secret, but one day we'd be able to go back." Jen appeared, her presence a silent anchor. Over the last few days, she had proven not just a professional ally, but an indispensable friend. Many nights were spent in hushed conversations after the children fell asleep, piecing together this growing puzzle. "Trees," Ethan murmured, almost to himself. "Oak trees. That street was full of them." A soft patter of small feet announced Chloe's arrival, her hair still damp from the bath. She climbed onto the stool next to her sister, eyeing the drawing curiously. "The secret garden," she exclaimed, eyes shining. "That's where Grandma Eleanor kept her letters." Ethan and Jen exchanged glances. "Letters?" Jen asked gently, but Chloe had already lost interest, focusing on her own sketch. Olivia, however, nodded eagerly. "Under the rose bushes," she explained, pointing to the flowers in the drawing. "Grandma Eleanor always put letters there when she thought no one was looking." Ethan's mind whirred. His mother's prized roses, the ones no one was allowed to touch. How many secrets might be buried in that soil? "I think it's time we pay a visit," Jen murmured, reading his thoughts. "Does that house still exist?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I've driven by it hundreds of times over the years, hoping she'd come back." The oven timer beeped, signaling dinner was ready. Noah came rushing in from the living room, his hair adorably messy from a short nap on the sofa. The domestic scene, so normal, so unexpectedly precious, made Ethan's heart tighten. As he served dinner, his eyes kept drifting to Olivia's drawing. Among childish lines and bright colors lay another clue in the puzzle his mother had left him. Tomorrow, he decided, was time to revisit the past. The sun had barely risen when Ethan parked on Oak Street. The centuries-old oak trees cast dancing shadows on the pavement, their branches whispering secrets he had tried to decode for 2 decades. Jen slept in the passenger seat, tablet still open on last night's research. "We're here," he murmured gently, touching her shoulder. Jen adjusted her glasses, blinking away sleep. The children had stayed with Officer Johnson, one of the few people Ethan trusted completely. The yellow house remained almost as he remembered, except the paint was peeling and the garden neglected. The rose bushes, once so well cared for, were now merely dried branches reaching for the sky like pleading fingers. "The new owners kept the original structure," Ethan explained, his voice hoarse with pent-up emotion. "I bought the place as soon as I had enough money saved, but I never had the courage to live here." Jen frowned, her perceptive gaze sweeping over the facade. "You said your mother was obsessed with those rose bushes. Where exactly did Olivia mention the letters?" Ethan approached the main flower bed, memories of his mother pruning and watering the plants every morning flooding his mind. "Here," he pointed. "This was always special. No one was allowed to touch these roses." Jen pulled gardening gloves from her purse. "Well, I guess it's time we find out why." The soil was hard, resistant after years of neglect. As they dug, the sun climbed higher, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was Jen who found it first, her fingers hitting something solid beneath the dirt. "Ethan!" she called, her voice tight with excitement. "There's something here." A metal box, the kind used for important documents, emerged from the earth. Its lock was rusted but easily gave way after years of moisture. "Oh my God," Ethan whispered, hands trembling as he lifted the lid. Inside, protected by sealed plastic bags, were dozens of letters, photos, and documents. "Smart," Jen noted, examining the plastic. She shielded them from the damp. The first letter Ethan opened stopped his heart. It was in his own handwriting, a Mother's Day card he'd written at age 12. Below it, carefully organized by date, were all the letters he'd sent to every possible address over the years, trying to find her. "She got them all," his voice wavered. "She knew where I was all along." Jen squeezed his shoulder in silence, giving him a moment to process. Her eyes, however, were already scanning the other documents with professional interest. "Ethan," she called softly, "look at this." It was a property deed, dated 5 years after Eleanor disappeared, for a house in a rural area called Havenwood, about 2 hours away. "Havenwood?" Ethan frowned. "Never looked there. It's basically a ghost town ever since the mining operation closed." Jen was typing furiously on her tablet. "Not so ghostly. There are records of electricity use, water service. Your mother was living there, Ethan, and based on the utilities, she wasn't alone." A noise at the backyard fence startled them. An elderly woman stood watching through the slats, curiosity evident in her expression. "Looking for something?" she asked, her voice surprisingly strong for someone who looked to be over 80. Ethan stood, showing his badge. "Ma'am." "Mrs. Davison," she replied, a knowing smile on her wrinkled face. "And you must be Ethan. Eleanor talked about you a lot." Time seemed to freeze. Jen approached, notepad in hand. "You knew my mother?" Ethan asked, barely concealing his urgency. Mrs. Davison opened the gate that separated their yards, leaning on a carved cane. "Oh, yes, she used to stop by sometimes, checking on the house, always with those 3 adorable kids." Ethan and Jen exchanged glances. "You saw the children?" Jen asked carefully. "Olivia, Noah, and little Chloe," Mrs. Davison said fondly. "Such polite kids. Olivia would always bring me flowers from Eleanor's place in Havenwood. Beautiful blue roses. I've never seen anything like them." "Blue roses," Ethan murmured. His mother had always dreamed of creating the perfect blue rose. "Eleanor was here a few weeks ago," Mrs. Davison continued, her eyes distant with memory. "She seemed worried, not herself. The children weren't with her this time." She looked directly at Ethan. "She left something for you, you know." Ethan's heart pounded. "She did?" Mrs. Davison nodded, motioning toward her house. "Come in, have some tea with me. I've got a lot to tell you about your mother and why she had to leave 20 years ago." The sun now shone fully on Oak Street. Ethan looked at the metal box in his hands, at Jen by his side, and at the neighbor who might finally help him understand the puzzle his mother had left behind. "The blue roses are the key," Mrs. Davison commented as they walked to her home. "Eleanor always said some things only bloom out of sight. I think it's time you found out what she meant." Jen discreetly took out her phone, sending a message to Officer Johnson. Something told her their trip to Havenwood would be far from a routine investigation. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was more complex and more dangerous than any of them could imagine. The road to Havenwood wound through mountains, its cracked asphalt a silent testament to the region's abandonment. Ethan drove in silence, processing Mrs. Davison's revelations. In the back seat, Jen dozed off, exhausted after another night, soothing the children's nightmares. The address Mrs. Davison had provided led them to a narrow road on the outskirts of the ghost town. A gray-haired woman with shrewd eyes and gardener-calloused hands answered the door of a small blue house surrounded by a wild garden. "Ethan Miller?" she asked. "Mrs. Davison called, said you'd be coming." "Come in." Her living room was a sanctuary of memories, photographs on every available surface, plants in improvised pots, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. "Eleanor moved here about 15 years ago," she began, pouring coffee into delicate cups. "Bought that house at the end of the road, the one with the rose garden." "Did you know her well?" Ethan asked, failing to hide his anxiety. She smiled sadly. "She was reserved, lived for that garden of hers. The most extraordinary roses I've ever seen, especially those blue ones she grew in the greenhouse." Jen leaned in, intrigued. Mrs. Davison also mentioned blue roses. "Oh, yes, Eleanor spent hours in that greenhouse. She was very protective of them, too." She hesitated, meeting Ethan's gaze. Only after the children arrived did she start to open up a little. How were they with her? The question slipped out before Ethan could stop himself. "Like grandkids with their grandma," she recalled fondly. Olivia helped in the garden, Noah always asked for stories, and little Chloe. She was Eleanor's shadow. Ethan's phone vibrated with a message from Officer Johnson. "Emergency? Noah had another nightmare. He's asking for you." "We have to go," Ethan said abruptly. "But please, if you remember anything else." The woman nodded, but her gaze was distant. "You know, the last time I saw her, Eleanor looked different, frightened, said something about the past finally catching up with her." She locked eyes with Ethan. 2 weeks later, she and the children vanished. The apartment was quiet when they arrived, except for muffled sobs from the children's bedroom. Johnson met them in the hallway, worry etched on her face. "He woke up screaming," she explained in a hushed tone, "something about bad men and Grandma Eleanor crying." Ethan found Noah curled up in bed, Olivia and Chloe wrapped around him protectively. The boy looked up, tears in his eyes. "Uncle Ethan!" Noah reached out, his small body trembling. "I'm here, champ." Ethan scooped him up, heart breaking at how desperately Noah clung to him. Jen was already seated on the bed, drawing Olivia and Chloe closer. "Want to tell us about your dream?" Noah sniffled against Ethan's shoulder. "The bad men, they came to Grandma Eleanor's house." Olivia shifted uneasily. "We're not supposed to talk about that," she mumbled, but her eyes betrayed her fear. "It's okay, sweetheart," Jen assured her gently. "You're safe here." "They wanted the blue roses," Chloe spoke suddenly, her small but clear voice surprising them all. "Grandma Eleanor got really mad. She said they'd never have them." Ethan and Jen locked eyes. "When did this happen?" Ethan asked gently. "The night we had to run," Noah replied, still shaking. "Grandma Eleanor cried a lot. She said it was time to find Ethan." "She said only you could help, Uncle Ethan," Olivia finished, biting her lip. "That you'd understand when you saw the roses." Jen was already jotting notes on her phone, but Ethan scarcely noticed. His mind was on his neighbor's recollection of his mother looking scared, the fierce protection of the blue roses, and the fear in the children's eyes. "Hey," he said softly, "how about some hot chocolate with marshmallows?" Noah's face lit up a little, and even Olivia seemed to relax. Only Chloe kept her solemn gaze on Ethan. "Grandma Eleanor made hot chocolate when we had nightmares," she noted, "and she told us stories about you when you were little." In the kitchen, while preparing the drinks, Ethan sensed Jen come up behind him. "We keep hearing about these blue roses," she whispered. "It can't be a coincidence." "My mother was always fascinated with botanical genetics," Ethan recalled, the endless conversations about DNA and mutations. "But why would anyone threaten an elderly woman over flowers?" The patter of small, bare feet interrupted them. Olivia stood at the kitchen doorway, holding something in her hand. "I found this in my coat," she said, extending a small flash drive. "Grandma Eleanor told me to keep it safe until I found you." Ethan took the device with trembling fingers. Written on its blue plastic in his mother's unmistakable handwriting was a single word: truth. Back in the living room, Noah had fallen asleep on the sofa, Chloe tucked beside him like a tiny guardian angel. The apartment was quiet again, but Ethan knew the silence was temporary. Somewhere, hidden in the coded genetics of impossible roses, lay secrets people were willing to threaten a grandmother and 3 innocent children for. "Let's see what your mother wanted you to discover," Jen whispered, already connecting the flash drive to her laptop. The hot chocolate cooled in their mugs, forgotten as another layer of the mystery prepared to reveal itself. The house at the end of the road in Havenwood emerged from the morning fog like a reluctant ghost. It was a modest 2-story structure, white walls with green shutters, exactly as the children had drawn it countless times in Ethan's apartment. "That's it," Chloe exclaimed from the back seat, her face pressed to the window. "Look, Olivia, Grandma's rose bushes." Ethan parked on the gravel driveway, his heart pounding. The garden, though neglected for months, retained a wild beauty that spoke of his mother's meticulous care. Different species of roses dominated the landscape, their blooms bravely withstanding the autumn chill. "Uncle Ethan!" Noah had already leaped from the car, racing to a tire swing hanging from an ancient oak. "Grandma Eleanor used to push me every day." Jen surveyed the scene with analytical eyes, notepad in hand. "The utilities were cut off about 3 months ago," she murmured to Ethan. "Water, too." Olivia walked through the garden with a familiarity that twisted Ethan's heart. She stopped in front of a specific flower bed, her small hands gently touching the buds of an unusual color. "Grandma's specials," she explained, noticing Ethan's gaze. She said they were magical. Ethan crouched by the flower bed, years of living with his mother teaching him to instantly recognize these unique plants. Even though they were still closed, the buds showed a striking shade of bluish-purple that shouldn't occur in nature. "The greenhouse!" Chloe cried suddenly, pointing to a glass structure partially concealed behind the house. "That's where Grandma kept her secrets." Jen headed for the front door, testing the locks. "It's locked," she stated, "but it looks like someone's been here recently. See the scuff marks on the doormat?" Ethan examined them, partial footprints that belonged to none of them. His police instincts flared. Something was off. "Kids," he called, "do you remember the last time you were here?" The three exchanged looks, that silent communication that always occurred when the topic was sensitive. "It was when Grandma got really sick," Olivia finally answered, her voice dropping to a whisper. She couldn't get out of bed anymore. The world seemed to stand still. Ethan felt Jen's gentle touch on his arm, offering silent comfort. "Aunt Anne took care of her," Noah added, kicking a loose pebble. "But then the bad men started coming, and Grandma said we had to leave." "Aunt Anne?" Jen questioned, pencil flying over her pad. "The nurse," Chloe explained, clutching her teddy bear tighter. "She was nice, brought us candy in secret." Ethan found a spare key exactly where his mother always hid it, inside a ceramic planter near the door. Some things never changed. The interior of the house was a time capsule. Photographs on the walls told the story of the last few years. The children growing up, moments in the garden, his mother smiling with that same pearl necklace she never removed. A fine layer of dust hinted at months of abandonment. Jen went upstairs while Ethan examined the living room. A stack of mail on the coffee table caught his attention. Medical bills, test results, hospital records. "Ethan," Jen's voice echoed from upstairs, laden with a gravity that made his blood run cold. "You need to see this." He found her in what was clearly his mother's room. A makeshift altar sat on the nightstand. Candles, dried flowers, and a recent photo of Eleanor. Next to it, a carefully clipped obituary from the local newspaper. "Eleanor Miller, 68, Jen read quietly. "Died on August 15th after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. Survived by—" her voice broke slightly. "By one son and 3 beloved grandchildren." Ethan staggered, his knees hitting the edge of the bed just in time. 3 months. His mother had been gone for 3 months, and he didn't even know. A noise at the door made them turn. Olivia stood there, silent tears running down her cheeks. "Grandma didn't want you to be sad," she said, her small voice holding a wisdom far beyond her years. "She said she had something really important to finish first, something about the blue roses and doing the right thing this time." Jen was already beside the girl, hugging her gently. Ethan remained seated, eyes fixed on his mother's photo, older than he remembered, more tired, but with that same determined gaze he had inherited. "Uncle Ethan," Noah called from the hallway, "there's a locked door at the end. Grandma said it was your room for when you came back." Ethan rose mechanically, following the boy's voice. The blue door at the end of the hall was locked, but a key hung from a cord on the doorknob. Inside was a perfectly arranged room, as though waiting for him for 20 years. On the dresser he found a letter addressed to him, his mother's handwriting so familiar it hurt. "My dear son, if you're reading this, it means you finally found the children. And it also means I couldn't finish what I started 20 years ago. The blue roses hold the truth I should have told you that morning. Now it's up to you to protect them both, the roses and the children. The flash drive explains everything, but be careful, Ethan. Some people will do anything to keep certain secrets buried. With all my love and regret, Mom." Out in the garden, the blue roses swayed gently in the breeze, their petals guarding the secrets that cost his mother her life. Ethan felt the weight of the flash drive in his pocket, Eleanor's final message waiting to reveal truths 20 years overdue. "Let's go home," he finally said, his voice rough. "We have a flash drive to open." The children bade the garden farewell as though saying goodbye to an old friend. Jen quietly gathered her notes, her worried gaze never leaving Ethan. As the car pulled away, Ethan watched the house grow smaller in the rearview mirror. Somewhere within those walls, his mother had lived her last years, raising 3 children and cultivating impossible roses. And somewhere in that same soil, she had hidden a truth she was willing to die to protect. The apartment was silent except for the gentle sound of rain tapping the windows. Ethan sat in his favorite armchair, a green notebook in his hands, his mother's journal found carefully stowed alongside the flash drive in the room she'd prepared. Jen had taken the children out to buy art supplies, giving Ethan the space he needed to dive into Eleanor's memories. His hand shook slightly as he opened the first page. March 15th, 2019. It happened again today. Someone tried to break into the greenhouse. The cameras caught 2 men in black, but I couldn't identify them. I need to be more cautious. 20 years of research can't be lost now, not when I'm so close. Ethan frowned. His mother had never mentioned attempted break-ins in her previous letters. Flipping a few pages, he came across an entry that made his heart stop. June 3rd, 2019. I found them today. 3 little angels, abandoned at the church door. The oldest can't be more than 2, protecting the others like a lioness. Something about them reminded me so much of Ethan when he was small. I couldn't leave them there. Father Michael said they were left in the middle of the night, no identification except for a note with their names: Olivia, Noah, and Chloe. Fate has a peculiar sense of humor. Just when I learned my time might be running out, it sends me 3 reasons to keep fighting. The next pages detailed the children's adjustment, tiny moments that made Ethan's chest ache with their simplicity and warmth. July 12, 2019. Olivia helped me in the garden today. Her little hands are surprisingly gentle with the roses. She has a natural gift, as though she instinctively understands the delicacy required. Noah keeps asking me for stories about Ethan. I think I've found an ally in him to keep those memories alive. And Chloe, she's so observant. Sometimes I wonder if she can see right through me, sense the pain I try to hide. Ethan swallowed hard, recalling the cancer diagnosis found among the papers in the house. It had already been present, quietly spreading. September 25th, 2019. The test results weren't good today. Dr. Adams insists on immediate treatment, but I can't stop now. The blue roses are finally revealing their secrets. The sequence I've sought for so long is nearly complete. If I'm right, it will change everything. The children are my strength now. Olivia senses something is wrong. She's far too perceptive for her own good. I found her crying in the garden. I promised I wouldn't leave them, but I feel the weight of that promise. Time is running out. The sound of the door opening made Ethan jump. Jen slipped in quietly, carrying shopping bags. The children were likely with Officer Johnson again. "How is it going?" she asked softly, settling on the arm of his chair. Ethan merely pointed to the next journal entry. December 18th, 2019. Olivia asked me about her family today. The words got stuck in my throat. How do I explain to 3 abandoned kids that I also abandoned my son? But her eyes, there's so much understanding in that gaze. I told them the truth, or part of it, about Ethan, about why I had to leave, about how some truths are too dangerous. Olivia held my hand and said, "We can be your family now, Grandma." And for the first time in a long while, I let myself cry. Jen gently squeezed Ethan's shoulder, offering silent support as he kept reading. March 5th, 2020. The pain is worse, but the roses have finally bloomed. The sequence is complete. Everything I've worked for these past 20 years is there, encoded in the petals of these impossible blooms. The evidence that could have saved Ethan during that investigation, that could have exposed the entire corruption network. It's ironic how life works. Now that I have the proof, my body is failing. But maybe this is how it's meant to be. Ethan is stronger now, more ready. And the children, they're the key that makes it all fit. The final pages were sparse, Eleanor's handwriting shakier. The last entry squeezed Ethan's heart. July 22nd, 2020. My dear son, I know you'll find this diary eventually. The children are my final gift to you, not just for the joy they'll bring, but for what they represent. They came to me for a reason, Ethan. There are no coincidences in this story. Olivia has your eyes, did you know? And Noah's determination reminds me so much of you as a child. Chloe. She has the gift we share, to see beyond appearances. The flash drive contains everything. My research, the evidence, the true identity of these children. But be careful, son. The same men who forced me to leave you 20 years ago are still out there, and now they know I found what I was looking for. Protect the children, Ethan. They're more important than you realize. And forgive your old mother for not being strong enough to fight 2 decades ago. Sometimes you have to step back before you can move forward. With all my love, Mom. Ethan closed the diary, his hands shaking. Jen already had her laptop open, the flash drive inserted. There's something here about the kids' birth certificates, she murmured, eyes flicking rapidly across the screen. And, my God, Ethan, you need to see this. Before she could reveal her discovery, the door opened again. Olivia burst in, her eyes shining with excitement. Uncle Ethan, we bought paints. Can I paint Grandma Eleanor's blue roses? Ethan smiled, setting the diary aside. The revelations would have to wait a bit longer. Of course, sweetie. Tell me more about those special roses. Olivia climbed onto his lap, her fingers toying with the badge he always wore. Grandma Eleanor said they were magical because they held a very important secret. A secret about you, Uncle Ethan. Jen closed the laptop quietly, but her gaze said the conversation wasn't over. Somewhere on that flash drive, the last pieces of the puzzle waited to be uncovered. And what secret was that? Ethan asked gently. Olivia smiled that smile, so much like his mother's. She said one day you'd find out, when you were ready to understand why we had to wait so long to find you. Outside, the rain continued, washing away Havenwood's secrets, but inside Ethan's apartment, among crayons and memories, the truth was beginning to emerge from the shadows of the past. Eleanor's private office in Havenwood was a maze of carefully organized memories. Ethan and Jen had spent the entire morning going through every drawer and folder while Officer Johnson watched the kids playing in the yard. Look at this, Jen called, raising a folder simply labeled Future. Inside were dozens of recommendation letters, all about him. Ethan took the papers in shaking hands, letters addressed to various adoption agencies and social services, all detailing his qualities as a potential guardian. His mother had planned everything, laying the groundwork meticulously. She knew, he murmured, voice thick. She knew she didn't have much time and wanted to make sure the kids ended up with me. A shout of delight from outside caught his attention. Through the window, he saw Noah on the tire swing, Officer Johnson pushing him higher. Olivia was arranging flowers she'd picked, while Chloe— "Where's Chloe?" Ethan asked, a hint of worry coloring his voice. "Here." The little girl's voice came from behind them. She had slipped into the office quietly, something small in her hands. "I found it in Grandma Eleanor's special place." It was an old music box, delicately carved with floral designs. Ethan recognized it immediately. It was a gift he had given his mother, bought with his first teenage paycheck. "She played it every night for us to fall asleep," Olivia explained, following her sister inside. "And she showed us the photos." "What photos?" Jen asked gently, crouching to the children's level. Chloe turned the key. A soft melody filled the room. "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," as a hidden compartment opened at the base, revealing a collection of pictures. Ethan carefully lifted the first one. It showed him at 12, smiling next to his mother in the garden of their old house. The next showed Eleanor, much older, reading a book with Olivia on her lap. There were dozens, documenting precious moments from the last few years. "Grandma Eleanor sometimes cried while looking at the old photos," Olivia said, her fingers gently tracing the border of a snapshot. She said she missed someone a lot, but had to wait for the right time. Jen took quick notes in her pad, professional instinct kicking in. The right time for what, sweetheart? For the truth, Noah chimed in, appearing in the doorway with Johnson. That's what she always said, that the truth had to wait until the blue roses were ready. Ethan exchanged a meaningful look with Jen. Blue roses everywhere, like a common thread pulling each piece of the puzzle together. Kids, Johnson called gently, how about a snack in the yard? I'm sure Grandma Eleanor stashed some cookies in the kitchen. After they left, Jen pulled up a chair, spreading out her notes on the table. We need to organize what we know. Eleanor found out she was sick and started preparing everything, Ethan finished, still clutching the music box. Letters of reference, neatly filed documents, even this office, ready for me to discover. One particularly thick folder caught his eye. Research, final phase, penned in his mother's handwriting. Inside were pages of notes on genetic manipulation in plants, specifically roses. Ethan, Jen called, voice tense. Look at the date on these medical tests. The initial diagnosis was over 2 years ago. She knew she was sick long before she found the kids. The last pages of the medical file revealed an even bigger shock. She refused treatment, Ethan whispered, the reality weighing on him. She chose palliative care so she could keep working. Uncle Ethan, Olivia's voice startled him. She had quietly returned to the office. Can I show you something? The girl led them to the greenhouse, her small steps sure-footed. At the back of the glass structure, partially hidden by vines, was a small safe. The code is your birthday, Olivia stated simply. Grandma Eleanor said only you could open it when the time was right. Ethan's fingers shook as he entered the numbers. The lock clicked softly, revealing more documents, an external hard drive, and a letter addressed to him. My dear Ethan, by the time you read this, you've likely learned of my illness. Forgive me for not seeking treatment. I had something more important to finish. The blue roses aren't just flowers, son. They hold the proof we looked for 20 years ago. The children, they didn't come to me by chance. Olivia, Noah, and Chloe are special in a way you will soon understand. Protecting them became my final mission. On the hard drive, you'll find everything. My complete research, the true origin of the children, and the evidence that can finally expose those who tore us apart so long ago. I don't have much time, but I believe you'll finish what I started. The children are the key, Ethan. They always were. With all my love, Mom. Jen had already plugged the hard drive into her laptop, her eyes widening at its contents. Oh my God, she murmured. Ethan, you need to see this. Before they could dive deeper, the sound of shattering glass came from the main house, followed by Noah's frightened yell. Johnson, Ethan called, police instincts kicking into overdrive. Only silence answered. Somewhere in the house, Chloe began to cry. The time for discoveries was over. Now was the time to protect what his mother had died to preserve. The scare from the breaking glass turned out to be just a cat knocking over a flower pot in the kitchen, but it served as a stark reminder of the moment's fragility. Johnson chased the startled animal away while Jen soothed the children with promises of hot chocolate. Now, in the restored peace of late afternoon, Ethan climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. The scent of old wood and dried lavender filled the air, his mother's signature for freshening linens. Can I help? Olivia asked, her small figure appearing at the top step. I know all of Grandma Eleanor's special hiding places. Ethan offered his hand, guiding her up the last step. Sure, sweetie. What else can you tell me about her? Olivia walked confidently through the dusty space, sidestepping trunks and boxes. This is where we played on rainy days, she said, indicating a corner piled with old cushions. Grandma Eleanor told us stories about you. About me? Uh-huh. About when you were little and wanted to be a superhero. Olivia smiled, stopping in front of a particularly old trunk. The letters are in here. The trunk was secured with a simple padlock, its key hanging discreetly on a nearby nail. Typical of his mother, always putting up the appearance of security while leaving obvious clues for those who knew her. Inside were hundreds of letters, sorted chronologically. Some still in their original envelopes, others carefully preserved loose pages. Ethan recognized his own handwriting on many, the letters he'd sent over the years, searching for her. She used to read them to us sometimes, Olivia noted, settling among the cushions. She said they were like little pieces of your heart, saved on paper. The sound of footsteps on the attic stairs signaled Jen and the other children arriving. Noah darted for the cushion pile, while Chloe, as usual, took in every detail with those keen eyes. "The Hendersons are downstairs," Jen said. "The neighbors who helped your mother in her last months. I thought you'd like to talk to them." Ethan nodded, but something about the letters caught his attention. Among his own correspondence were others, written by his mother, but never sent. "Dear Ethan," he read aloud, voice low. Today, Olivia said her first word. "Flower. You started like that too, always fascinated by the garden. She's so much like you, sometimes it hurts to look at her and see your eyes. The doctors say the experimental treatment might buy me a few more months, but I can't risk leaving my work unfinished. The roses are almost ready, along with the chance to fix the mistakes of the past." "Grandma cried a lot when she wrote," Noah commented, fiddling absently with a small toy car found among the cushions. "But then she'd make us cookies, and everything would be okay again." "Jot." Jen had slipped back downstairs to talk to the Hendersons, leaving Ethan alone with the children amid this tangible record of his mother's life. Every corner of the attic told a story. Shelves lined with well-worn children's books, a collage of drawings pinned to the beams, tiny treasures in shoeboxes. "Look!" Chloe suddenly exclaimed, pulling something out from behind a stack of boxes. An old photo album decorated with pressed flowers. Its pages revealed the daily life his mother had built. Eleanor in the garden with the children, birthday celebrations, reading afternoons on the porch swing. In every picture, even when visibly ill, her eyes sparkled with genuine joy. "That was on my birthday," Olivia pointed to a photo of Eleanor helping her blow out candles. "She made a chocolate cake with strawberries." "And here," Noah leaned over, pointing to another shot, "was because when we planted sunflowers, she said they'd grow all the way to the sky." Ethan came to a series of more recent photos, apparently taken at the hospital. Eleanor in a wheelchair, thinner, but still smiling, the children surrounding her. The Hendersons appeared in some shots, as well as a gentle-looking nurse who must have been Aunt Anne. "Should we head downstairs?" he suggested gently, noticing the weight of memories on the children's faces. "I think I heard Jen mention something about cookies in the kitchen." They found Harold and Marie Henderson, both in their 70s. Marie hugged the children at once, tears in her eyes. "Eleanor talked about you a lot," Harold said, extending his hand to Ethan. "During her final weeks, she worried she wouldn't have enough time to put everything in order." "She refused to stay in the hospital," Marie added, already busy preparing cookie dough with Noah's eager help. "Said she had something important to finish in her lab. Those roses were her obsession." "The lab?" Ethan questioned, his curiosity piqued. "Down in the basement," Olivia replied before the Hendersons could, "where she kept her computers and science stuff. Grandma never let us in." Jen, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. "Ethan, I think we need to see that lab." "After a snack," Marie insisted, sliding the first batch of cookies into the oven. Eleanor always said serious conversations were best held on a full stomach. Soon the kitchen filled with the smell of vanilla and chocolate, so familiar that it made Ethan's chest ache. The children helped Marie decorate the cookies, their laughter echoing against the walls of the house just as it had on so many previous afternoons. "She was happy here," Harold said softly, observing the scene. Even at the end, when the pain was worst, having the kids around seemed to give her strength. She only truly got scared in her last weeks, when those men started showing up. Ethan and Jen exchanged concerned looks. "What men?" They never properly identified themselves, Marie replied, tension in her voice. Said they were from Stanford University, interested in her research, but Eleanor was always agitated after they left. That's when she started organizing documents more urgently. And the visits to the law office, Harold added. Something about a guardianship process? Guardianship process? Jen asked, pencil pausing on her notepad. For the children, Marie explained, offering a freshly baked cookie. Eleanor was determined to make sure they stayed with you, Ethan. She spent her last days finalizing the paperwork. Ethan watched the kids, now busy decorating cookies with bright frosting. Olivia was intensely focused on making perfect patterns, Noah more interested in tasting the frosting, Chloe creating tiny works of art on each biscuit. One more thing, Harold said, dropping his voice. The last time I saw her, Eleanor mentioned a backup. Said she'd sent copies of her research to several places, just in case. The doorbell rang, cutting the conversation short. Johnson, who stood guard on the porch, quickly stepped into the kitchen. Ethan, she said, tension in her voice. Some people are here. They say they're from Stanford University. The children immediately drew closer to Ethan, their small bodies trembling with a familiar fear. On the kitchen table, the cookies cooled, their sweet aroma now mingling with the palpable tension. Marie Henderson clutched her pearl necklace unconsciously, a gesture so reminiscent of Eleanor that Ethan's heart tightened. Some truths, it seemed, would come at a higher price than just homemade cookies and stories of the past. The cardboard box seemed harmless enough, hidden in a corner of the attic behind old Christmas decorations, a return to sender, stamped in red on dozens of envelopes, all tied neatly with faded blue ribbons. Ethan sat on the dusty floor, the late afternoon light slanting through the cracks in the roof. Jen had taken the kids for ice cream with the Hendersons, giving him the space he needed for this discovery. The first envelope shook in his hands. His mother's elegant handwriting, so familiar yet distant, had addressed it to his old apartment on Magnolia Street, September 15th, 2019. My dear son, autumn has come again, and with it, the dahlias you always loved are blooming in the garden. I try not to see it as a sign of fate that they chose now to open, just as I received the doctor's news. Cancer? Such a small word for such a heavy burden. Dr. Adams speaks of treatments and possibilities, but his eyes tell me what his lips try to soften. I need to see you, Ethan. There's so much to explain, so much to make right. The letter went on for 2 more pages, but the red "No Known Recipient" stamp cut across the words like an open wound. The next letter was dated 2 weeks later, to October 1st, 2019. Ethan, I tried your old workplace today, but they said you were transferred. Nobody would give me your new address. Maybe it's fair. I disappeared without a trace too, right? Olivia asked about you today. She has your smile, you know. Sometimes I catch her staring at your photo, the one from your 12th birthday, as if trying to memorize every detail. My treatment is supposed to start next week, but I've discovered something in the roses, something that might finally fix the mistakes of the past. I just need more time, son. Just a little more. Letter after letter, month after month, his mother had tried to reach him. Ethan ran his fingers over the ink, feeling the slight bumps where tears had fallen before it dried. December 25th, 2019. Dear Ethan, it's Christmas. The kids decorated the whole house, and Noah insisted on leaving cookies for Santa. I told them stories about your Christmases, how you always tried to stay awake to see the reindeer. The mailman suggested I try email or a phone call. I smiled and thanked him, but how do I explain that some things need the solidity of paper, that I need you to be able to touch these words, to feel all the love I never knew how to express? Chemotherapy should have started today. Instead, I spent the morning in the greenhouse. The blue roses are almost ready, son, and with them, the proof you've been seeking for 20 years. More returned letters, each one a piece of his mother's heart, each one a moment lost forever. March 18th, 2020. Ethan, the pain is worse today. Dr. Adams says time is running short, but I still can't stop. The roses have finally revealed their secret. The proof is there, encoded in their impossible DNA. Olivia found me crying in the garden yesterday. That girl, she has your intuition. She sat by me, took my hand, and said, "Don't cry, Grandma. Uncle Ethan will find us someday." How can she be so sure of what I myself have doubted for so long? Ethan barely noticed the tears now staining his own shirt. At the bottom of the box was one letter that stood out, not for the return stamps, but because it was still sealed. July 10th, 2020. My beloved son, this will be my last attempt. My hands can hardly hold the pen, and the words dance in front of my eyes. The mailman, always kind, promised to try one more time to find your address, but we both know it's hopeless. Or maybe it's for the best. The kids are safe, the research is complete, and the evidence you needed is finally assembled. Everything is ready for when you find them. Because you will find them, I'm sure of that. Forgive your old mother for not being stronger 20 years ago, for not staying and fighting by your side. I thought I was protecting you, but now I see it might have caused us more pain. The mailman suggested again that I try more modern means of communication. I smiled and thanked him, as always. He doesn't understand that some truths need the weight of paper, the permanence of ink, the time it takes to write each word with care and love. The blue roses are blooming in the garden, their impossible petals holding the secrets that cost us our separation. Olivia watches them with the same curiosity you had as a child. Noah asks 1,000 questions, just as you did. And Chloe? She has your gaze, the one that always saw beyond appearances. I'm out of time, son, but I leave you 3 gifts. These wonderful children who remind me so much of you, the proof you searched for, and all the love a mother can hold in her heart. After 20 years apart, I hope one day you understand that sometimes love means waiting for the right moment, even if that moment arrives too late for some of us. With all my love, now and forever, Mom. The sun had set by the time Jen returned with the children. She found Ethan still in the attic, surrounded by opened letters, the last one still in his hands. "Uncle Ethan," Olivia's soft voice, "can we stay here with you for a while?" He simply opened his arms, and the 3 children nestled around him. The paper rustled gently in the evening breeze, drifting through the rafters, as though his mother were still there, reaching out one last time across the years. "You know," Chloe murmured sleepily, "Grandma Eleanor always said some words only make sense when written with love." Ethan pulled the children closer, feeling in their small bodies the last and most precious gift from his mother. Somewhere among blue roses and returned letters, Eleanor had found a way to build a bridge across 20 years of silence. The basement lab was a testament to Eleanor's meticulous nature. Shelves lined the walls, each folder carefully labeled, each drawer marked in her precise handwriting. Jen typed quickly on her laptop, hooked up to Eleanor's main computer, while Ethan combed through a folder labeled Origins. "Found it," Jen muttered, pausing her fingers. "Clara Thompson, 28 years old. Car accident on Highway 27, 3 years ago." Ethan stepped closer to the screen, taking in the photo of a young woman with golden curls, just like Chloe's. The police report was brief: wet pavement, sharp curve. A simple and devastating tragedy. "Here," Jen continued, opening another file. "Eleanor was at the hospital that night for preliminary tests. She witnessed Clara being brought in." Eleanor's handwritten notes flashed onto the screen, her script shakier than usual. "Clara held my hand in her last moments. It was all about her kids, Olivia, Noah, and Chloe. Promise you'll take care of them," she begged. "How can you refuse a dying mother? How could I not see in that moment a chance at redemption?" Ethan sank into the lab chair. "So that's how—" "There's more," Jen said gently. "Eleanor investigated everything about Clara. She was a scientist, too, working in molecular genetics. No close family, just her kids." In a nearby drawer, they found a scrapbook. Eleanor had documented every step of the children's first days with her. Olivia, barely 2, trying to console her younger siblings. Noah, still a baby, clinging to his teddy bear. Chloe, tiny and solemn-eyed, observing everything. "Look at these notes." Jen pointed to entries in a scientific journal. Eleanor was researching a cancer cure using genetic engineering. The blue roses were part of her DNA modification experiments. But she stopped, Ethan concluded, understanding dawning. She gave up treatment to care for the kids. An envelope slipped out from between the journal pages, a letter addressed to Clara. "Dear Clara, we never really met, only those few precious minutes when you entrusted your most valuable treasures to a stranger. I want you to know your children are loved. Olivia has your gentle spirit, Noah your endless curiosity, and Chloe, she's your mirror image. I can't replace you, nor do I wish to try. But I promise to love them with every moment I have left. And when my time is up, my son, Ethan, will continue that love. With eternal gratitude, Eleanor." From upstairs, they heard the children laughing with Johnson, Olivia teaching the others a song, their sweet voices drifting through the floorboards. "Ethan," Jen called softly, holding another folder. Eleanor had already started the adoption process. All the documents are here. Psych evaluations, financial records, even recommendation letters from the neighbors. "She knew she wouldn't have time to finish," Ethan murmured. "So she set it up for you," Jen added, showing him. "She listed you as the designated guardian. All it needs is your signature to move forward." Ethan picked up a loose photo on the desk. Eleanor in the garden with the children, everyone smiling at the camera. Even while clearly ill, her eyes shone with genuine joy. "She used her last months," he said, voice quavering, "not to save herself, but to save these kids, giving them the love she couldn't give me for 20 years. Jen placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "So, what do we do now?" As if in answer, small footsteps descended the basement stairs. Olivia appeared first, followed by Noah and Chloe. "Uncle Ethan," Olivia asked hesitantly, "we want to show you something." The children led them to the garden, where the afternoon sun bathed everything in golden light. Olivia stopped before the blue rose bushes, now in full bloom. "Grandma Eleanor said when the roses looked like this," she explained, carefully touching a petal, "it meant it was time for us to be a real family." Noah took Ethan's hand. "Will you be our dad now, like Grandma Eleanor promised?" "Zoe," Chloe added, her eyes so like Clara's, locked on him. Ethan knelt on the grass at eye level with the children. Jen stepped up beside him, her presence a quiet anchor. "She planned it all, didn't she?" he managed, a watery smile. "She knew exactly what she was doing when she found you." "So we can stay?" Olivia asked, her small voice brimming with hope. Ethan opened his arms, and the 3 children rushed into them. Jen joined the group hug, completing the family circle effortlessly. "Forever," Ethan promised, feeling the weight of 20 years of absence give way to a future full of possibilities. Just like Grandma Eleanor wanted. In the garden, the blue roses swayed gently in the breeze, their impossible petals holding Eleanor's final secrets. But her greatest legacy wasn't in genetically modified flowers or scientific discoveries. It was there, in that embrace, under the afternoon sun, where 4 lonely hearts finally found their home. Jen mentally noted the next legal steps, but her eyes shone with tears. "I think your mother knew exactly what she was doing," she murmured. "Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to pass the torch." "Grandma Eleanor said some families are made of blood," Chloe commented drowsily, nestled in Ethan's arms. "And others are made of love." Ethan looked at the children in his arms, at Jen by his side, and at the garden his mother had tended so carefully. Eleanor had used her last months not in search of a cure for herself, but to build a cure for broken hearts, those of the children and his own. "I think it's time we go home," he said at last. "Our home." The children beamed, their smiles lighting up their eyes just like Eleanor's. On the horizon, the sun began to set, painting the sky in pink and blue, the colors of a new dawn for a family born of Eleanor Miller's final and greatest act of love. Spring had arrived once again in Havenwood, bringing with it the sweet scent of blooming roses. Jen organized the last of the documents on the kitchen table: certificates, affidavits, psychological evaluations, the adoption process finally reaching its end. "Final signature?" Ethan asked, pouring coffee into 2 mugs while watching the kids play in the garden through the window. "Last hearing is next week," Jen confirmed, adjusting her glasses. "Judge Williams has reviewed the whole case. She said she's never seen a file so well prepared." "All Mom's doing," Ethan smiled, remembering how Eleanor had planned every detail, even knowing she wouldn't be there to see the outcome. Childish laughter rang out as Olivia burst in, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Uncle Ethan, we found another letter from Grandma Eleanor." She held an aged envelope discovered in a gardening toolbox in the backyard. Eleanor's handwriting, though shaky, was unmistakable. "To be found when the blue roses bloom again," read the inscription. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, Olivia climbing onto his lap. Noah and Chloe, who had followed their sister, took seats nearby, eyes on the envelope. "My dear family, if you're reading this, it means love found its way. The blue roses are blooming again, and with them a new chance at life blossoms. Ethan, my beloved son, you are finally home. Forgive your old mother for all the difficult choices, for all the years of silence. Every decision was made with love, even if it doesn't always seem that way. Olivia, my little guardian, keep protecting your siblings with that big heart you have. Your father's strength and your mother Clara's kindness. Use both to make the world better. Noah, my curious explorer, never lose that thirst for knowledge. Your endless questions reminded me so much of Ethan as a child, always wanting to know why. Chloe, my quiet observer, you see more than people realize. Cherish that gift, but don't be afraid to share what your heart knows. Jen, though we never met, I know you're exactly who this family needed. Take care of them for me. The garden is yours now. The blue roses will always keep our secrets, but it's time to create new memories, new stories, with all my eternal love, Eleanor, Mom, Grandma. Ethan rose slowly, still holding the letter. I think I have something to say, too. Outside, under the clear morning sky, the family gathered among the rose bushes. Ethan pulled a neatly folded paper from his pocket. Dear Mom, 20 years is a long time to carry regrets. Today, I understand that sometimes love means waiting for the right moment, even if that moment arrives in unexpected ways. You taught me about love twice, once in my childhood with Sunday pancakes and bedtime stories, and now, through these 3 wonderful kids, you prepared to be my second chance. The blue roses finally revealed their secrets, but your greatest legacy isn't in scientific breakthroughs. It's in the smiles of these children, in the love you planted in their hearts, in the family you carefully cultivated for me. I promise to honor your last wish. These kids will be loved, protected, and guided, just as you did for me. And this time, I won't let time slip through my fingers. With eternal love, your son, Ethan. Jen joined him discreetly, wiping a tear. How about we create something special here in the garden? The next hours were spent making a memorial for Eleanor. Olivia carefully chose the prettiest roses for a small circular bed. Noah helped paint rocks with messages of love, while Chloe arranged seashells and crystals in delicate patterns. Grandma Eleanor would like this, Olivia declared, pleased with the outcome. Moving into the house happened naturally over the following weeks. Each room held memories that gradually merged with new stories. The children's bedroom was bright and filled with new toys, but Noah's old teddy bear still held a place of honor on the shelf. Jen turned the old office into her workspace, but kept Eleanor's photographs on the walls. So we remember how we got here, she explained. 1 year later, the sun had barely risen when the family arrived at Bixby Creek Bridge. Olivia, now 6, proudly carried a homemade cake topped with sugar roses, blue of course. "Over here," she decided, pointing to the exact spot where Ethan first found them. "It's the perfect place." Noah helped spread out a picnic blanket while Chloe carefully set out 6 plates, one extra for Eleanor's memory. "Happy birthday, Olivia," Ethan smiled, lighting the candles. "And happy family birthday to us all." Jen handed out slices of cake, the wedding bands on her finger, exchanged in an intimate ceremony in the rose garden 3 months prior, glinting under the gentle morning light. "Look," Chloe pointed to the horizon where the sun rose in pink and gold. "It's just like the day Uncle Ethan found us." "No," Olivia corrected softly, the wisdom of someone far beyond her years shining in her eyes. "It's better, because now we're a real family, just like Grandma Eleanor planned." Ethan hugged his family, feeling the weight of his badge on his chest, the same one that led him to these 3 lost children. In the Havenwood garden, the blue roses still bloomed, holding Eleanor's secrets in their impossible petals. But the true miracle wasn't in the genetically modified flowers or scientific discoveries. It was right there, under the Bixby Creek Bridge, where 5 hearts found their way home, united by the persistent love of a woman who never stopped believing in second chances. "Some families are made of blood," Jen quoted Eleanor's favorite phrase, "and others are made of love." "And sometimes," Ethan added, watching the sun climb higher, painting new day promises, "they're made of both." Olivia blew out the candles, her eyes shining with the same determination Ethan had inherited from Eleanor. Somewhere, between the sky and the blue roses, a mother smiled, knowing her final act of love had blossomed exactly as planned. Love, after all, always finds a way, even if it takes 20 years, 3 lost children, and a garden of impossible roses to guide someone back home.